Next up is my dear friend, Kim Muller. I love this woman, and as he is a businessman, she is, what are you? All things to all people. You are one of the most amazing, connected, beautiful women I've ever met in my life, and I am so grateful to know you. And Logan and I just did a donor advised fund with you, with NCF. If you're in this room, Logan and I are going to find you, and we're going to do whatever you're doing. So, Kim, here you go. I'm going to steal that mic from you, though, to give her that one, I think. Or wait, I'm going to give you...
Go. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Rotating
Thank
mics.
you, Kara. Well, it is great to be here, and NCF is a sponsor of the Barnabas Group. So for those of you who are members, you've heard NCF's 4 minutes that I get each quarter. But this time, I was thinking, well, I know we have a lot of visitors, so welcome. But I know you probably get tired of hearing from me, and I thought, what would be the best way to talk about NCF? What if I had a giver who has benefited from the ministry of NCF share his story? So that's what we're going to do tonight with Kurt Hensley. He has agreed to share his story because I know many of you in the room are business people, and NCF was founded in 1982. Ron Blue, one of the main people, Larry Burkett, Terry Parker. And why was it founded? It was founded because many people kept asking them, how can I give non-cash assets to my church, to a ministry? And there really wasn't a way to do that. So they received a designation from the IRS, and one of the first organizations to do that. And people then would be able to give stocks and business interests and property to the charity of their choice. So fast forward now, and since 1982, $18 billion has come through NCF to 90,000 organizations. So it's so cool. Yes, and I have the privilege of being the area director here for San Diego, and I often say that NCF is like Switzerland, and often I will go to different donor events. I've been down to Mexico with YWAM. They build houses in 2 days. I've done that like 3 different times. And why do I go? I go to talk for 10 minutes to say, hey, most of your assets are in non-cash. Usually 90% of our assets are in non-cash, 10% in cash. I know you're passionate about, YWAM or whichever ministry I'm representing. You can use NCF to gift to that ministry. So I'm going to turn it over to Kurt, and you can tell your story of how you heard about NCF and why you thought it might be helpful for you and your family.
Well, we've had a donor advised fund with NCF for many years, and we've really enjoyed everything that it's involved. But about a year ago, they put up a slide in their 4 minutes and said, hey, look, if you would give a percentage of your company, upon sale of your company, you'll get more money. The charities that you love will get more money. And of course, that money has to come from somewhere. And of course, it comes from the U.S. government, which I thought was probably a pretty good idea. Of course, I had honestly already looked into it a few times before. It just didn't seem like the right timing. So anyway, I realized I had a gigantic tax bill coming. And I thought, you know what? It's time to look into it again. It seemed like a good time. One of my 4 Arizona businesses had really, we thought, peaked out and had a nice maximum valuation. So we went ahead and gave 5% of the stock of the company to NCF. And so for 2022, that created, I guess that means it was a year and a half ago, the presentation, sorry. Anyway, more like even 2 years ago. But anyway, so for 2022, it created a 7-figure tax deduction, right? Which was really fantastic. That's one of the greatest parts about it. And then we realized in 2023, we should do it again because it was so fantastic. We really ended up with a bunch of cash that we would have had to just give to the government because, instead we got a tax deduction. And so we got to put it in our NCF DAF, give away a lot more than we thought we'd be able to. And by the next year, we're like, oh, we should do it again. And so I think one of my concerns up front was like, well, now I gave another 5% away, so they're going to own 10%. And I'm like, well, what happens to that 10%? Well, I'll tell you what happened in the first quarter. They got $100,000 for their 10% for a quarterly distribution. $97,400 after some tiny administrative costs went into my DAF, and I got to give them to the ministries that I love. And I tell you what, this is one really feature of a DAF that I think is fantastic, a donor advised fund. but I really started to realize it more. I kept making pledges to the ministries that I love. And I kept coming up every month or every quarter going, oh, I got to keep funding this staff, right? So that the monthly things come out. But now that more and more and more money is going in from our companies, the money's just there, right? And it came from my companies. It's like it's donated anyway. But at the end of the day, it's really given a different joy to giving. There is just something so much more fun to having amount sitting there, being able to give it away, and not having to fund it every month. And so, anyway, I was always told that about the donor advised funds, and yet I never really fully experienced it until I gave away a non-cash asset. So.
Oh, that's a great example. And so I like to explain NCF in two components. There's the way that is just think of it as like a charitable checking account. My husband and I have had our own NCF giving fund for probably 15 years. We do all of our charitable giving through that. And what does that mean? It means at the end of the year, we print a statement for our tax advisor, email it to him, and there's everything listed in one place. We don't have to save each receipt for each charity, figure out who we gave to during the year. You can be at a huge fundraiser gala. You can give anonymously. Being in an election year, some people like that. And that's just, a way to organize all your charitable giving. So that's the simplistic side. And then this other side is the side of, gosh, what are these non-cash assets that in our country, we have a very generous tax code. Who knows, how long we will have it, but while we have it, the IRS allows us, and I always like to make this clear too, they allow us with NCF, we never want to work with someone as a prearranged sale. So it means that if you're thinking of selling a business, thinking of selling a property, talk to me because we have a team of attorneys, CPAs, it's all for free. And if it's going to work for you and the strategy that you're trying to accomplish for your family, awesome. And if it doesn't, no problem. But talk to us ahead of time because if you come to us and the contract has not been signed, then we're happy to work with you. But if it's like, oh no, the business is, we've already contracted or the property, then it's too late.
I would say two quick things. Number one, if you give the money after you sell, you don't get those benefits of you getting more and the charity getting more. Exactly. That's the important part that I really didn't mention. Yeah. There's a big difference to it. And then secondly, before we wrap up, I just wanted to thank NCF because we just started this sponsorship program, but they have been our long-term sponsor. They have been giving as a sponsor, our sole sponsor for many, many years. I just want to thank NCF.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do we still have a minute? Okay. Thank you, Kurt. Andy added a little time, so I'm still going to take my minute that I have left up here. But yes, that's really kind of you. And our ministry is all about generosity. So one of the things we like to do is also partner with organizations such as Generous Giving or Women Doing Well. We just held an amazing event for women. There are a number of women in here who were there this past week and at a beautiful home in Carlsbad. And the purpose was to inspire generosity. And it's not just your money. It's your time, your talents, your treasures. And we're just all about each of you living the most abundant, fullest life that God has for you and your calling. And your calling might look very different than this person, but we just want you each to be all that you were made to be. And that's why we partner with, if you've heard of doing a jog, a journey of generosity, we facilitate those. We can do them in your home for like 6 couples, and you see incredible videos about people who've given, like Kurt's given an example of a percentage of his business, but we have people who've literally given their entire company to NCF. And just radical stories of generosity that encourage everybody. And the Women Doing Well helps the woman figure out her plan for generosity, her 2-word purpose statement, and what she's passionate about. So talk to me after, and however we can help and serve you, we are grateful for the Barnabas Group, because this is always the room where it happens in San Diego. So, woo!